All right, I want to show how I make my storm capture split frames. These are extremely handy. A lot of people actually use rubber bands. I've done the rubber band method when things are getting really slippery with honey and you're trying to handle this delicate comb and also you're getting a lot of bees in your face. It can be really tricky. So I had seen clamshell frames somewhere, maybe in an old book or something, so I wanted to make them. I make mine on the bandsaw. I don't know how you would do it without a bandsaw. You might be able to do it with razor blades. That would be really tricky. If you did it on a table saw, you would want to do the thinnest curved table saw you could use. Bandsaws are inherently extremely, well, comparatively, they're safe compared to a table saw. You really have to work at it to stick your hand in here. But even then, I use a guide, and then I've got the throat of the bandsaw as low as possible so that I can just still have clearance there for the piece. This also controls the drag and some of the wander that happens when you're using a bandsaw. So having this down, you're gonna get a lot more control of the actual piece that's running through. If you want more information about how to run a bandsaw or how to use particular power tools, you'll probably wanna see it in other videos. This is specifically on how to cut some of these frames. So what I did is I've got the top bar, and what I'm gonna do is I run these things through and I split it right down the center. And so this bandsaw is pretty decent thin kerf, so I'm only removing like maybe a 1/16, maybe a little bit more, not quite an 1/8 of an inch for sure. The other thing is, again, bandsaws tend to wander even with a guide here. So I've got a couple of pieces of tape here. As soon as I'm done with this, I'll slap the tape on each of the pieces I cut. This way, if they're, let's visually an exaggerated S here, this piece will match up. Otherwise, over time, sometimes some of them, depending on the grain, you'll end up with one side that's thicker than the other. And if you threw them all in a box, which I've done in the past, you'll end up having one that's really thin on the top, and then I'd have one that's too thick on the top. So by keeping track and putting a little tape on here after I cut it, I can actually keep track of the piece that I'm using. So I'm gonna turn on the collector and the bandsaw, and then I'll just cut these, and you can see how quick it goes through. And then I'll show you the setup for the sides, and then we'll talk through what the assembly looks like, because we actually have to assemble this in a certain way. And I'm gonna use a thin wire in a zigzag pattern to show you how easy it is to actually put the comb in there. All right.